Hi guys. So Gumball Studio is collaborating with Design District to discuss rethinking landscapes for the future. So I'm Shivangi Gujjar.
Hi guys, I'm Ankita from Gumball.
Hi guys, I'm Udit from Design District.
Okay, so we are having this discussion on how landscape right now isn't very relevant to today's times, and we are going to be discussing on what the practices are right now and what the solution should be in terms of landscape that exists within our cities. So we have Udit with us, who is actually a landscape architect. So, Udit, why don't you give us an overview about what the current scenario is in India with terms of landscape?
Yeah, I think currently we look at landscapes as just a leftover kind of space within our cities where we could actually plant trees and green it. Whereas landscapes towards the future or where we should look at it could be more it could be looked at it in a slightly different manner in which we could actually start connecting green together and then looking at how we could live together along with this amount of landscape. So the amount of greening that we could actually do in cities should be looked at being done in much larger scales, I would think.
Okay.
Yep. So
Yeah,
I think
so
it's kind of formalized in a sense. We just create these neighborhood parks and things like that, which are quite individual. So I think it's not just about having these separate spaces, and it could be part of the entire overall neighborhood. It could be part of our roads. It could be part of our sidewalks. It could be part of an overall system where you have a lot more green itself in an overall kind of a city, I would say.
yeah, so I get what you're saying. So right now, the way like our cities or even say like our neighborhoods are planned is just that there are these random parks that have been, it could be put anywhere. It's not contextual at all. So they are just random parks that are bits and pieces here and there. And most of these parks that I have seen, at least, they just have like a walking track and then just random plants and trees planted around it. So like you said, there is no ecological value that has been looked at, and I'm sure this needs to change. Yeah. So
Yeah, talking about, bringing in culture to each one of these spaces itself. So right now, what's happening in general, even in architecture, so landscape architecture, I would say, is everything is just being plonked into place. So if you walk in a
yeah,
park, say
exactly.
in the middle of Bangalore, or you walk in a park in Mumbai or in Delhi, for that matter of fact, to a large extent, you would just feel that it does not reconnect you back to the city or relate you back to the city itself. You have this exactly same kind of a pathway, the same curbs and the same set of trees. There is no essence or memory of the city itself that's brought into these spaces, I would say. Talking about them as from a cultural point of view, but also talking about them from an ecological standpoint. I would say that the way they're planted, the trees are planted or the plants are planted is more, I would say, ornamental or aesthetic, whereas
Yeah.
this is not necessarily the way we should actually look at it. We should be looking at it in terms of a more ecologically sensitive and sustainable manner. We need to bring back our birds, our animals. It could be small animals and birds. It could be just butterflies. It could be just squirrels. But
Yeah.
it makes a huge difference itself, I would think.
Right. So now that's said and done, like you mentioned to me earlier, like how the like Western countries, they have already adapted this change, and they are being more sensitive towards city planning in terms of green spaces. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I was actually what we are currently doing is we're just blindly copying the West as it is or as it was rather. So what they had done in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s is kind of what we are just blindly following, of how we need these large plazas, these large centers, just completely paved spaces. But then today, if you look at the more contemporarily designed or newly designed spaces or cities or even countries for that matter of fact, I would look at, say, Singapore for an example. So they have this idea of having these park connectors itself. So they have these large linkages of these parks that are going through the entire city. So you could actually go all the way from the city till the airport, for that matter of fact, on a bike, on a bicycle. Basically, you could jog it, you could walk it, you could. So basically, the idea is you could get into a green space and not get out of it till you reach your destination. You don't have to walk through this noisy spaces of this honking and people. We could try to blend more with nature itself, I would say. I mean, also looking at places like, say, Sheffield in the UK, where I've also lived, it had a kind of similar kind of an essence where you had separate parks, and these parks were just somehow interlinked. So the major idea is not just human connectivity, but then also, like I said earlier, spoke about smaller birds and animals and insects. So what happens to them? They now have miles and miles of connectivity, so they can go from one end to the other and probably get out into a forest or something like that. Whereas right now you create this one little square in the middle of a high traffic city.
Yeah.
You have a squirrel coming out of that square patch and he's probably dead. So I think things like that have to be re-looked at in terms of, from the perspective of various I think, forms of life itself, not just humans.
Yeah, so basically doing something like that, like sort of just, relooking at something as simple as a public park in terms of like connecting it or like, creating something with it, can be beneficial to both like humans and also the whole ecological system of like animals and birds and things like that. So yeah, that's what you're trying to convey, right? Like it could help even fish.
Yeah, so what I was trying to actually say is we don't have to live separately. We don't have to be humans living separately and wildlife living separately. We can actually come to a middle ground where we can actually live together side by side. If you look at it in a broad perspective, humans are part of the animal kingdom. Yeah. It's just that, okay, we have gone ahead to destroying more than we should have, but we can actually probably start living alongside.
Yeah, it is already too late, but then if you need to start making changes now,
it's pretty much evaded their space and like not really left anything for them.
Yeah,
so it's just them having to reclaim, their surroundings.
Yeah, that's true. But this would definitely facilitate, a better living standard even for humans. Like, because the way greenery or like landscape provides a home to the wild, it is also very essential for humans, right? Like we were once the wild, so we have evolved from there. So we can't like completely forget those roots and think that just building structures and like planting a tree next to your house is going to help. No, because other than like, we all know like the great benefits of having a green belt or whatever that is in your city. So we need to sort of move forward towards that direction. Like that's what I feel.
Yeah. So when I speak about blending back with nature itself, we not necessarily will definitely be open to all this idea completely, I would say.
Yeah.
So there still could be a space where we could define spaces where we could, as humans, could only walk by a forest or something like that, and then leave the rest of the space to itself, and just have maybe viewpoints where you could look over a lot of spaces, and the animals could be by themselves to a large matter.
Yeah, because definitely, like we don't want to like cause any sort of disturbance because it's their home. Like we can't like then there's no difference if you sort of like go and disturb them in the homes you create for them. There's no difference like between a zoo and what you're trying to create, like essentially. You need to like basically live and let live sort of scenario, but like being respectful.
Yeah. Just to bring a quick point back into the cities as well, what we have actually been doing in terms of greening in the Indian context is a large amount of this greenery that we're trying to put is we're getting in non-native species of trees itself. So we're just copying various ideologies. So we've initially moved from all the say the Mughal rulers had a certain idea of a landscape, so they had planted trees in a certain manner. Later on, I mean, things changed over then the colonial times of how they looked at trees. They brought in trees from various places. They brought trees from, say, even from Australia and various places like that. And coming to the 21st century, also, if you look at it, the IT revolution that happened. So what actually really happened was that the IT revolution that happened basically out in California basically took out trees from the Middle East in terms of palms looking nice and put it all in their campuses in Los Angeles or California for that matter. And what did Indians look at? Indians looked at as palm trees or the desert palms from California as high-end luxurious products and then wanted them back in India. So then all the campuses in India wanted to bring that in. It kind of became an ornamental kind of an ideology of luxury or something like that. But these trees don't benefit anybody in that, for that matter of fact. It's not even shading to humans, nor does it support any sort of wildlife. So, I mean, things like that have to be relooked at as, I think, as a country as a whole.
Yeah, again, that draws back to the whole thing about how landscape needs to be more contextual, right? Like based on where you are living, your climatic conditions, your need, and things like that. It needs to resonate with all of that, basically.
Yeah, I think we should start enjoying what we have, our nature that's currently present, the tropical rainforest that we have. Yeah, it's really, really gorgeous as it is. And we just don't erase that from our mind and want something else. So everybody is looking at wanting something better, but I mean, the grass is always green on the other side.
That's true.
I mean, somebody in the West wants a very tropical kind of plantation with lots of large leaves and trees. And we sit right in the middle of that, and then we say, no, we want plain land, we want 8 farms. So is that what we need?
True.
Yeah.
That's true. Great. So, Shivangi, anything you want to like discuss regarding?
Not really. I just feel like most of the new, at least in the Indian culture, like I think most of the ideas are also adopted from Western culture, and sometimes it's just lost in translation. And like, you know, there's like you guys were saying earlier, I think just to add to that, there's no context. Like it's all about the aesthetic and keeping up with the trends. Like there's nothing that's really, you know, it's not beneficial to the environment, and it's not exactly helping us coexist with wildlife. So I would even say, like, you know, incorporating, like we had mentioned on our stories as well today, like incorporating all of these like, you know, plants into your surroundings and into your home is also another way of encouraging that, I guess. And you know, that's what I think, like we need to definitely, planting trees is definitely something that needs to be done and looked at more seriously. And I also think, I think so many people have also realized that it's the need of the hour during the whole COVID situation. Like during the pandemic, people have realized the lack of trees and, you know.
Yeah, because nobody got to go on holidays to, you know, nice green
to like exotic locations. I think they realized that they were just stuck in the city, and this is what they've created.
This is what we have done to us. Basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think going back to the trees point that you said, it's way more important to have trees than just putting small plants itself, because that's what's actually going to green cities in a larger impact, to a larger impact itself.
Yeah.
That's true. Like, and also like the benefits are like n number. Like they are like the obvious is reducing pollution, and like it acts as shade, and then the oxygen benefit, and they also are like when you look at it in terms of architecture, you don't need to like build up a wall. You can just plant trees and they become like a great privacy device. And
So thanks for joining us on this call, Udit. Would you like to add anything before we end this discussion?
Yeah, I think we should look at the future of the world more seriously, and global warming and things like that more seriously, and actually plant more trees. And as designers, as architects, as landscape architects, as a common man, I think everybody should pitch in and do their bit, and not just be a part of the criticism, and actually be a part of the change. And what we should be tomorrow, what we do today is what is going to directly impact how we live in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it is a lot to think about, but everybody's been thinking for a long time. I think we need to act on it now. Like, whatever it is, baby steps, start now is what I say.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys so much. This was a really informative discussion, and we look forward to having such discussions in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Shivangi. Thank you, Ankita.
Thanks for this.
Thank you.